one day session, but she started engaging me for a continuous several things, including how society should care for women, should understand them, should understand their specific needs. All said and done, this world has been created for man. There has not been enough care given to women. So we are going to start an MMA, another series called Listen to Our Women. Listen to Our Women. And Zia is going to be one of the first speakers there. Now, it's a great honor for us that Gopal is here. His brilliance is something that all of you know. I do not have to talk about it. I had the privilege of working with him in the same board where he was vice chairman of Hindustan Lever and I was a director. And Virginia Roche is a business tycoon, a stunningly big business that she runs. I'm really amazed that she had the guts and daring to take on such a large project, and she has all the ability to run it. And Gayatri is very aptly starting up, which most of you will be doing. So we have here Virginia, Zia, Gayatri in 3 different phases of business enterprise. So we have a lot to learn, and we'll start with Zia. Zia, you're most welcome to start.
Okay, so thank you for those wonderful words. I'm going to start my presentation without much ado, because I think, firstly, I think I should thank all those people who have come on board on a Monday. Monday is a tough day. The week starts on a Monday. So thank you for taking that time out and actually coming to listen to me. It's a privilege to be invited by MMA. I'm especially delighted with Mr. Balraman and Mr. Gopalakrishnan. We're, alumni of the same organization, but they were, out there and up there when I started my career as a young management trainee. I was in awe for them and very inspired by them. And I think they've inspired many leaders in corporate India. And thanks to this particular session, I've got to know Gayatri and Virginia very briefly, but they seem like people I would just absolutely love to get to know more. So I really firstly want to thank everybody for this opportunity, and Group Captain Vijay Kumar, thank you for all the support to actually get this started so smoothly. I'm going to actually be talking about this voyage of discovery, and I don't know when it started. So the whole idea is to talk about my entrepreneurial journey. But if I look at my working life, then 2/3 of it has been with big corporates in corporate India, as has already been described. And I'll just touch a little upon those. When I was going through that journey, often there was a time of, hey, why me, why this? Because I handled amazing brands and, had great experiences. And actually, if I go back even before corporate India, if I look back at St. Xavier's College, a college which opened my mind. It was a college which encouraged you to explore, experiment, accept diversity, look at different dimensions of things. And I think to be an entrepreneur, that is an ability that you need to be able to look at very many different things. So if there are any young people listening, I'm saying use your time in college, school, everything to just, explore as many things, because that's what makes a difference when you actually venture out on your own. Cutting across to, of course, my MBA college in Bajaj, we had the good fortune of having a lot of visiting faculty, so real life case studies, and some of it, I can now see how it helped shaping this company called Aquasail. In all the companies I worked in, I never got to handle a power brand. And that time I never got to handle, a brand with huge marketing money and with that, absolute reach across the different countries in the globe. But today, I think that's what's helped me in my entrepreneurial venture. So sometimes I think there's a design for everything, because how do you do a lot with very little? That, I think, is the story of entrepreneurship. I also want to say that on my voyage of discovery, the discovery was more about unlearning some of the things I learned in big corporate. So some lessons you take on board and say, this is the right way. And some lessons you say you've got to quickly unlearn if you really want to move on. So what made me get into this entrepreneurial journey? And I'm going to take Aquasail's as a case study of what we did, what is entrepreneurship, and that's something else I want to define. That there are different kinds of entrepreneurs. So you could be a small entrepreneur running your own little restaurant, but you're not looking at scaling and growing and doing stuff. Or you could be into entrepreneurship where it's already funded and it's still like an entrepreneur, who's going to take something from level 3 to level 4. But what I consider entrepreneurship, and the things I'm going to talk about, is if you're going to create a new category, you're going to create a new brand, you're going to create a new market, you're going to do something that hasn't been done before. To me, that is entrepreneurship. So if you want to step out and if you want to do things, I think sailing, besides the fact that I'm in a sailing business, it's got beautiful lessons. So ships are safe in harbor, but that's not what ships are built for. And many of us have a dream inside us. And a lot of people, I know I was talking to Virginia today, and she said so many people say, I want to get out there and do something of my own. But I say, get out there and do it, because if you're in safe harbor, that's not what you were built for. If a ship stays in harbor, all it gets is barnacles. So you have to move out and you have to explore. And that's the story of really being an entrepreneur. Even if, and I'm going to say something a little different, you could be in a large company and still be very entrepreneurial. And I think that's very important. And you can do that if these 3 words resonate with you. You need to have a dream, because that's what you're going out there to create. That's what stimulates the imagination. You've got to have some reason why you're doing it. Why would you leave safe harbor? Don't leave it because you don't like the harbor. Leave it because you want to do something. More important than the dream, or the most important thing, is to be able to convert that to a vision. So if I look at Aquasail's dream, it was to evangelize sailing. It was to create India as a go-to sailing destination for the world. But if I look at the vision, we translated it into saying, create access for safe and responsible boating. This we were able to verbalize, visualize, and imagine because you come with domain expertise. And I think some of these things are very important if you want to be a successful entrepreneur. We realized that sailing is something which is not really, there in the country. There are a few handful of sailors. And then comes a third ingredient called passion. If you know and you have a dream that you believe in, you're able to translate that into a business vision. Then the passion is what's the fuel which will keep you going every time you get hit by a storm. So what did we know? We knew 2 things. There was a huge opportunity out there, a sea of possibilities. Active leisure was a trend. People wanted to do things. They didn't just want to see things. People were going to places to be able to do things, say, I learned something. But on the other hand, there were all the issues. India is a country which, like everything else, is a country where, people are not very sporty. People are not very outdoor types. People don't like getting out in the sun. It's too hot or it's too cold for people. People don't like to get dark. So there were all of these challenges in this whole sea of possibilities. It was also the other side of possibility. Why India and why sailing? 7,200 kilometers of coastline, some of the best conditions for sailing. But what did we have to do? We had to educate the world and Indians that that's so, and that it's possible, and that great predictable wind conditions, warm water and warm weather is what you need to create the magic of sailing. So what did we do? In a big company, if somebody said, hey, Zia, I'm appointing you as a project for this company, and this happened to me all the time, by the way, when I was in Unilever, somehow I was always taught to do innovation funnel and, new projects. And you do a lot of market research, pressure test, market research, hire the best MR companies, business plans. What did we do? We didn't have the money, but what we did was that Shakil and I, and our quick introduction to Shakil is the managing director of Aquasail, started sailing at the age of 10 and went on to, win the first international gold in sailing, world championship medals twice over, coached a junior squad, which had lost the world championships and after coaching won the junior world championships. What did that give him? The ability to reach out to people across the world. What did we do? Boat show, Paris boat show, Southampton boat show. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of hard work. We just went out meeting anybody and everybody who could give us insights. Sailing holiday companies, team building companies, corporate sailing companies, opened our eyes and we knew what was possible. What nobody could tell us, and whatever you think, you can get the best mentors, best coaches, nobody can tell you how to sail your boat. This is something you must remember. You have the compass, you have the chart, you know where you're going to, you've got the weather predictions, but the storms are going to hit every day, and only you know, and only you will have to figure out how to sail a boat. This again is a difference between big corporate and entrepreneurship. You have to innovate every day. And for that, there is an attitude, a sort of a can-do attitude. You have to say, I've got this little boat, I've got this big sea of possibilities, my imagination, and I've got to get out there and have that focus, that absolute focus on meeting my goal. Innovation and ideation are beautiful words. So Aquasail does a lot of team building programs. We have a lot of CHROs talking to us, and often they'll say, I want to build entrepreneurial spirit. I want people to think innovatively, but I think you have to be in the skin of it. You have to live innovation. So in fact, you have Six Sigma, you have a lot of different innovation tools, you have funnels, you have various ways. But in entrepreneurship, it's the whole ability to wake up every day with a new idea. And one of those ideas, you have to make it happen. So I'm going to talk about innovation to execution, which is what actually makes entrepreneurial ventures really, really succeed. So what did we do? I told you all the challenges. Was somebody going to wake up one day and say, Aquasail exists, so I'm going to Google wanting to go sailing? No. Most people whom I met would say, hey, that's so exciting. I really thought I'd love to go sailing, but isn't it too hot? Wow, you sail at 3 PM? My God, it must be so hot. I said, we can't sell sailing to the Indian audience. What we can do is sell them what they want. And take this product called sailing and meet a need. What was that need? People are desperately wanting to do something different. Take a city like Bombay. What is there to do besides eating? What's the entertainment? So you want to get out conveniently. And it all fell into place in a business plan. An in-city location like Bombay, iconic gateway we call it, a little weekend getaway called Manwa, magical Manwa is what we call it, and Goa. People want to celebrate special occasions. So we started creating products around what do you do for your birthday, what do you do for your anniversary, what do you do for your child, what do you do for your to propose to your girlfriend, and what do you do for Valentine's Day. Romance. And this means that we took, and really this beautiful red color is, Valentine's Day, family occasions, small and big, all suddenly started capturing the imagination of people. Hey, you know what? I want to sail. But what we tell them, you really want to do something different, come and sail a boat. What else did we do? We said sailing has multi-dimensional facets. I'm just thinking that if we just thought of sailing in a very technical term, Shaki is a coach, he's a world champion in sailing, we could have said we'll create a sailing school, or we could have said we'll sell boats. So that's not creating and evangelizing sailing. Sailing is a social sport, a leadership sport, a sport for the family, a sport for the adventurous, a sport for somebody who wants to just relax and chill out. Something for everyone. The beauty, something for everyone from anywhere. So the best thing was when we had, say, people from Australia, like one of the beccas of windsurfing coming to India to Aquasail to Goa to learn windsurfing. And of course, things like TripAdvisor and all started playing a very critical role. So we realized the world's our oyster. Then we said, okay, this is for trial. People will come, they will sail. We've had 75,000 people, coming and going and sailing and getting on a boat. We need to keep them there. So the academy, the Aquasail Academy, started playing the role of getting people to stay with you, and the skill of it, the thrill of it, teaching your children, teaching a life skill. So we looked at that part of it, the bucket list, new segments, schools. So the whole idea was we were not selling sailing, we were selling a solution where sailing was an answer to just many, many things. It became bigger than sailing. And beyond the individual, and before I forget, we also looked at sort of memberships and club memberships and the community feeling of sailing. So all this started creating what is called different dimensions of sailing, curated, channelized through various sales channels, travel agencies, event companies, training partners, online partners. And then we looked at corporate India. Here's a fleet of boats, 40 boats out there in Goa. The boats, pink and yellow boats on the extreme end is something I can put you on a boat, you can go sailing out on your own even if you've never sailed before. The one right up here, black and white, tough boat to sail, exciting, exhilarating. So imagine corporate India coming with a few hundred people and saying, I want to give these guys a super fantastic, memorable experience. So we started creating things like beach carnivals, beach Olympics. How did it happen? So we had a wonderful pharmaceutical client. They did a small program with us, and the CEO of the company said, hey, we're thinking of doing our next conference in Goa. You think you can take our guys sailing? Sure, why not? When I went for the brief, it was 1,000 people. So we created something called Sailing Carnival. 1,000 people went sailing. 1,000 people who'd never seen a boat went sailing from 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock in these little boats and had the time of their lives. So this is also listening to your customer. You have to be so tuned into your market, so tuned into your product that you just start creating. This is what I mean, the power of ideation and innovation, converting it to execution. So then came things like teamwork. Can I take my team out and can they get an outcome out of this more over and above fun? Why not? I mean, if you're kayaking, just take a simple thing like kayaking. You learn to synchronize alignment, things that corporate India grapples with. How do you get ownership? How do you get people to empathize? How do you get people to work together in a team? So the team building products. Look at this, you have one couple there where the person has slowed down to take the lady in the kayak. These two are running. So you learn to pace. You can debrief any of these so beautifully that with a little bit of insight, you can create the most powerful experiential learnings which will impact a young management trainee to a board member in a way that probably very few things can. So we took the dimensions of sailing and created this. And then we created this zing word, regattas is a sailing word, but it suddenly became Aquasail regattas. Have you been for an Aquasail regatta? Clinics, teaching what we call lessons from the deep blue sea. More than just that, we said there's a huge need in corporate India to network. So whether you're an IT company, you're a bank, and I say change the axis because this is another opportunity. I'm going to keep talking about opportunities and challenges. So when we had one of our clients who said, what a fantastic thing you're doing, but can't we just do it is there anything we can do together? And we created a series of regattas for Axis Bank together. And I think here comes a power of collaboration. Your stakeholder can be your customer. In evangelizing markets, your best stakeholder is your customer. And that's another thing to remember. If you can win the trust, you get well-wishers. We have the most beautiful customers, both in corporate India and retail. And if any of them are listening, I want to thank them because they made all the difference. So we created this whole series of regattas and we created this amazing property called the CEO Cup, which captured the imagination, I think, of many corporates in India as well as the media. And I'm happy to say Mr. Gopalakrishnan has been there as a sort of speaker, sailed a boat in 26 knots of wind, and I'm sure I would like him to share his experience of this. So all of this sounds like a very exciting, of course, very obvious story 12 years down the line, but I hope I've been able to put across that to take something as nascent as sailing, create a product structure around it, more importantly, to get people to buy it at the value that you believe you are giving. And that's another thing. That's something I learned from most of the companies I worked with. Don't undervalue your product. Sell value. Create value. The customer is willing to pay for value. We're a safety-oriented product. So ensure that you give value, they will come back. And I think it took a lot of guts to do that. So when we were able to take that and we were able to execute it flawlessly. The bigger thing, however, was, it sounds like smooth sailing, but it wasn't. Every day, with all of this excitement, was disappointment. was wondering where you're going to have money to pay the salaries, money where you're going to have pay the rent. Somebody's not yet paid the advance, and how are you going to manage to buy the stuff that you need for the next event? How are you going to fly people down? Resilience is something that every entrepreneur needs. And I have a little story to tell about this, because I think every entrepreneur must be able to capsize a boat and get back on it 100 times. So when I started sailing, how did my sailing journey start? In 1984, in Xavier's College, 12th standard exam, me and two friends of mine whom I'm still in touch with, we went off to Goa, saw this beautiful, colorful sail, waited for it to come back. This person was a national level windsurfer, still in Goa, still in touch. And he said, what are you doing? He said, I'm windsurfing. And, so next day we went windsurfing. So how do we continue? He gave us a contact in Bombay. And we came back to Bombay and we explored sailing. The first time I went sailing, I went and I got on this boat and I started doing whatever the person told me to do, and I capsized. And all that person told me was, get back on the boat. And I clambered back. I was quite shocked. And he said, sail on. And then, something happened and I capsized. He said, get on the boat, sail on. I came back home and my mom said, how was your sail? And I said, Mom, I capsized. And she said, so how was it? And I said, it was the most fascinating experience of my life. And I think somewhere there I realized that capsizing a boat can be fun. You must be able to get back on. And this resilience, this ability to get back on and sail on, is a very critical attribute of an entrepreneur and of an entrepreneurial journey. Along with this resilience is the ability, and it's very important to note this, ability to recognize opportunities when they are thrown at you. Again, if you get into analysis, paralysis, and a lot of, let's look at it and let's weigh this opportunity, you're going to lose that opportunity. Opportunities come and they go, and like the alchemist, universe conspires. I really believe that. So, as I said, when we started Aquasail, and there was this whole thing of we create a sailing holiday company ultimately. To create a sailing holiday company ultimately, you needed to have a sailing center in Goa. It's a place which attracts the maximum tourists, the place with the sea which attracts the maximum tourists. Great place for domestic tourism, great place for MICE and corporate engagement. How do I create a sailing center in Goa? We had gone, when we started Aquasail, we went north to south of Goa, but couldn't find a hotel or anybody who had that imagination to understand what we were doing. And one day I got a call from an ex-colleague of mine.
Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. Okay.
So let me just start off. So here's the opportunity that came. So I was given this call, and the call was, hey, you know what? I know someone who's building a hotel in Goa. They think they want to create a sailing center. Would you like to explore something with them? Shakil and I were on the next flight down. We thought we were going to see a hotel, but the hotel was still being built. There were girders and things like that. And we went and we talked to the people. The project manager happens to be, again, the universe conspires, a French person who was a sailor. And we talked and we said, you're still building the hotel. The plans are there, but they can be changed. Why have a few boats? If we have a lot of boats and we build a beautiful world-class sailing center, we can cater to all of Goa, anybody who comes into Goa and all of the world, and it can be the first hotel with a fantastic sailing center. Well, cut a long story short, 2,500 square foot of a sailing center, world-class locker rooms, shower rooms, all of this got built. And so great story to tell. The hotel was ready to open, lots of fam, lots of, getting the travel agents to see everything, and we're ready to open on 1st of October. And guess what happened? We had taken this beautiful, when we say catch the tailwinds, it means you got the wind in your sails. But then we absolutely got hit by what are called headwinds. And that is that the hotel opened. Everything was ready. But just a few days before we could open, and we had a client and we had taken money, we were just denied permission. And anybody who's been in regulated industries would know what I'm talking about. I have been in two. So in financial services, I remember waiting for 5 years for the insurance sector to open up. One of my jobs was to get ILFS into insurance. And all we did was rounds of conferences waiting for every year for that sector to open. But then we were a large company with deeper pockets. Monsanto, it was always an experience of waiting for permissions for new products. But when a company like yours has invested in 40 boats, foreign instructors coming in, infrastructure, marketed yourself, actually, taken money and, got a pipeline of clients ready, and you're denied permission for no reason. It was the toughest setback we've ever had. It took us 5 years. But that is where you had your anchor of, this is what I'm going to do, these are my boundaries, and I will get it, but I will get it in the way I want to. So 5 long years of waiting for Goa to happen. So these kind of setbacks and these kind of opportunities will hit an entrepreneur literally, and I really mean it, every day, small and big. Now, after so many years, as we were looking at, okay, we've got this fantastic set of clients, corporate India, great set of products, how do we take it to the next level? And to take it to the next level, I'm happy to just share, very good news that just a few months ago, last October, we had a very like-minded investor coming on board, Mahindra and Mahindra, and that's another thing, that when you look at the fact that they were a client who came on board because they were able to imagine with you. And I think that's the beauty. If you have partnerships, there must be people who understand your dream, your vision, and bring that amazing value, which together then creates a synergy which is unmatchable. So that became, I think, my next voyage. And as we thought, wind in your sails, guess what happened in March? COVID, okay? Which is, I know, affecting everybody here, but think about it. We are in leisure, we are in tourism, we are in the hotel business. Once again, navigating completely uncharted waters like the rest of the world. But there's one thing a sailor knows. We put there, no wind is favorable if you don't know which port you're going to. But I look at it the other way. Every wind is favorable, even a COVID wind situation, if you do know which port you're going to. And I think that is something that I would really say, that is the attitude. You have to look at how you're going to do it. So what are the learnings in this leadership voyage? One, I've talked about it. Every day, every minute is a new challenge. How do you meet it? A word called agility. Again, when I look at the briefs that I get from corporate India, agility is a big word. If you look at this boat, everybody's doing something. You just got to be agile. You adjust this sail, you adjust that, you adjust the way you go, you do everything, and you have to be able to meet those, not only a challenge, but grabbing an opportunity. Be prepared for it. I think it's being prepared and then responding. The other big challenge, and this has been something which for me has been the biggest learning, and I think the biggest challenge is right talent at the right time, at the right price, in the right place. It's something that everybody I speak to, every entrepreneur I speak to struggles with. And the message I would give is about pacing yourself, calibrating your dream, calibrating your vision, because you're just never going to get what you want. And it's not just with people, it's with resources. But I think really one of the big challenges to grow is having that people with that passionate attitude. So my own team building programs taught me this. I one day saw, I was watching kayaking and saying, if only she would row a little slower, he could keep pace with her and the kayak would go faster. And you realize that you have to slow down. Sometimes it's a great lesson for CEOs, by the way, slow down to go faster. So let's look at the kind of team we managed. What was the challenge? We thought our biggest challenge would be getting instructors. And it's true, Shakil had coached 22,000 kids. But not one of them was going to look at sailing as a corporate career. Because imagine in India going and telling a mom, I'm not going to be an engineer or a doctor, or I'm going to go and become a sailing instructor. It doesn't work, doesn't fly. So we had those fantastic sailors coming on board whenever we wanted them and we needed them. They came in and brought this ultimate dimension of racing when we are doing certain kinds of programs. But we reached out to the world. Said my customer is global, so can my team be. And so we had people coming in from UK, Tunisia, Kenya, Turkey, amazing bunch of instructors who came in. And in fact, that became a differentiating factor, among other things, for Aquasail. People for whom teaching, sailing, and racing and instructing is a career and they're passionate about it. We also got an absolute amazing mix to back this up, which is fishermen from Ratnagiri, local talent. They love their boat. They understand the sea. They don't have blood in their veins. They have salt water in their veins. They know how to look after that boat through storm and sunshine. And though they've not really sailed sailing yachts, in 2 days flat, they can sail a boat. And nobody knows the tide or what's going to happen, and there's a storm coming like them. So what a mix of foreign instructors, my Tyndalls from Ratnagiri, and a whole bunch of other people who just got together to create and execute those absolutely outstanding programs that we do. Here it is, this is a team of complete mix, and everybody is part of the team. Every single person is part of that. So you have to create that, because if you're in the kind of business I am in, services, you need to have people who execute. And the other one, of course, is a lesson for everybody, entrepreneur or not, is that whatever happens, you can't say I didn't have the resources or I didn't have the people. But what you will have to do very proactively every time is adjust your sales. And for that, again, I come back to execution and process. And again, big corporate to entrepreneurship, I would say that I'm a very process-driven person. From day one, Aquasail implemented a CRM system. We had huge amounts of data. We had medical forms and collected all kinds of data, because that's where I was brought up, data, market research, and I'm very grateful for that. And I think you should take the learnings from whatever experience you had and apply it to your new venture. But don't get stuck in process. You have to get things done. And I think for me, that was another huge learning step. And I find that a lot of people, when they move, if you can't deal with ambiguity, you can't be an entrepreneur. You have to be able to deal with ambiguity. You have to be able to deal with something happening which was never planned for, and enjoy it. I think that's the biggest thing. So look at these 4 people. They all know what they're doing, but somebody's going to do something wrong. You adjust, you make up. A continuous learning curve. You have to continuously explore. Make that plan, make that vision, write your statement, but be ready to explore. Engagement with your stakeholders and enthrall your customers. They are the ones who make all that difference. So be anchored with your vision, ride the wave of opportunity, change course every time you need to. And most importantly, just believe, 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 and believe. And I think that is what makes you successful. If all this happens, whether it's in your business, entrepreneurship, or life, and this is my life's philosophy, I really believe this. The universe conspires to make things happen. So with that, I end my story so that I can leave time for questions. I want to say something. It is a very challenging time for everybody. For big corporate, I can empathize with everybody who is running a business today. All I can say as sailors, we know one thing. The tide turns. Wait for the tide to turn. It must, it will, and be patient. But in that time, keep polishing your boat if you're waiting in harbor or wherever you are. And I think these things, this ability to be patient also is a very, very critical aspect of entrepreneurship. And as I say this, I wish everybody who's going through the turmoils that we all are the best of luck. I want to thank everybody who put the wind in our sails, my investor, Mahindras, the investors who helped us to buy our first boat, every one of the customers, and of course, everybody who's been there with me on my journey. So thank you very much, MMA, for this opportunity to share my story with everybody who's out there listening. Thank you, everybody who's listening, for coming on a Monday evening to listen to this.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Zia. Zia, in fact, Virginia was telling me that we should run programs of how people are managing the COVID situation, because she said it has stunned the world, and there is a danger of, people losing heart.
Yes.
Is your business running now? Is your business running?
Is my business running? So, my business has an off season which happens to coincide with June, July, August, September. So, in June, July, August, September, I don't operate anyway. So, what we have done is, in response to COVID, we have done a pay now, sale later scheme with a 14-month validity. So, I'm just saying that you have to do these things. We're also pivoting onto digital to say that what I have to do is I have to turn my model around from corporate to retail. So, you have to make those small course adjustments.
Are you paying your employees?
Yes. I have a more, so I have a different philosophy. I think it's a great question you asked, Mr. Balaraman. For me, business and even corporate life has always been a subset of life. I have to live my life's values first. And for me, that is very important. Would I have been able to without my wonderful investor? I don't know. I think there's been a lot of things, but I always believe in the universe conspires to make things happen. If you're a good person and if you have the right intent, things happen. So my employees actually got together and all, decided how they wanted to deal with it. So we are paying less than full salaries, but we are paying.
Yeah. Okay. No, we understand, because it's very difficult to keep an organization going without cash flow. But Virginia did advise me, look, Mr. Balraman, at this time it would be a good idea to bring people together and share ideas on how we manage to survive COVID and be ready. So, and since you gave me the opportunity, I thought I'll ask you. Now, you see, we have very exciting panelists. I have a hidden agenda in bringing Gopalakrishnan here. The hidden agenda is that he keeps on writing books, okay? And if we manage to inspire him, if we manage to convince him that the cause of women in business is worthy writing about, he will write, and we will get his support. So how do we trap him? It's up to you three, okay? Now, of course, I have more aces up my sleeve, but I'm starting with you. Now, who wants to comment? Virginia or
Gayatri?
Gayatri, okay, Gayatri.
Thanks, Zia. That was, for about half an hour, we were all enjoying the nice sea, as I could see from every slide of your presentation. That was excellent. The thing that I grapple with is how do you model this? Now, this is again uncharted territory. You didn't have an industry, a sailing industry where you could borrow a business model or something. It was completely different. That's the same thing that I struggle with in my business. How did you model it? And obviously the model, was it, you would have built blocks on the model. So how did you handle that? Not just the financial modeling, the business model itself.
Yeah, so I think part of it I covered in terms of, so that one thing I learned, I'm a marketing professional. Okay, so the customer is the core. Like I said, I didn't sell sailing. So I had a classic chart. It never goes according to that, but it helps you to structure your thought process. So we had very clear, there's corporate and there's retail. In retail, we said people who will tentatively try, go into learning, go into memberships, and go into maybe even buying a boat, timeshare, fractional ownership. So we did a 360-degree modeling for both retail and corporate. Okay, and it's very important. The big thing that helped us was Shakir's domain knowledge. So the same boat could be used for different things. So it was very important to invest in not very expensive. I have 80 boats, by the way, 80. Okay. All right, 40 in Goa and 40 across Bombay, Mandwa. But they're not the most expensive boats. The most expensive boats are fractional, they're bought by somebody, used by us, etc. So there's a whole modeling on how do you manage your what seems to be an expensive fixed capital investment. How do you then sweat those assets by using them flexibly? It's like a hotel. So Grand Hyatt, in fact, is a great example. Grand Hyatt is a hotel we are in. That hotel that we found, I forgot to mention the name. So exactly placed between north and south. So they have all these rooms, right? Now they use them whether somebody wants to do a wedding or somebody wants to do a big corporate thing. So they have the banquet hall. So by mixing and matching, you can do that. So I think we realize that if we can get these pieces right and use the same asset and sweat it across different products, then you've got a winning product, and you also hedge your bets there. The month corporate is up, retail is down, etc.
Quite heavy on the investment to start off with then.
So not really, because we didn't buy very expensive boats. So if you look at those boats, so one would think, and I think those are the myths we want to break. That you have to be a very rich person to buy a boat, and a boat costs a few crores. Well, no, a boat costs a few lakhs. And, so for a business, we had to buy it. Why did we buy it? Because we want to ensure quality. I don't want to just take different customers' boats. We had a purpose. If I'm going to make yield race, they have to be good racing boats. They have to be comfortable racing boats. So we bought the right boats, but at very good prices. And that comes from domain knowledge.
You spoke about two, corporate and retail marketing. So did you use digital marketing? How was your marketing? What did you focus on?
I think in today's world, you cannot. It would be suicidal not to be, in the digital online world. But I will share that, initially we started very strongly on digital. I'm telling you, within 12 months, we had a CRM and a website and an e-commerce enabled website in place. Because again, I come from that process orientation, content. But I will tell you, actually, the challenges are very nitty-gritty. Today, people say content is king. But who's there to write content? There's nobody, everybody's, there is a superficiality today.
Right.
So I think you've got to get your mix right. We pivoted to corporate because of my corporate background.
Right.
And pivoting back to retail. But you need to harness the power of digital, but it is not as easy as it sounds, because the solutions look simple. Everybody tells you it's so easy. What is that? You just post on LinkedIn every day. It's not so easy to post on LinkedIn every day. You do need people. So I think again, you have to pick your aces. You have to let go some things. But to answer you have to do digital. If I'm saying you have to be online.
Digital sort of appeals more to the retail, I think. The corporates are not really digital. If you want a corporate client, it's not really digital.
Digital has a lot of it serves a lot of objectives. So imagine sailing is such an image-laden sport, right? So just by being present on digital, so imagine if you're a CHRO, but you are seeing a lot of imagery of sailing, or you're seeing case studies being described on LinkedIn, then a pre-selling happens. So if I, as a salesperson, have to walk into an office of XYZ company, but there's something they've seen. They said, Aditya Birla has gone sailing and they did this. So there is a little.
Right.
So you may use digital to create your credibility, to address the myths and the misconceptions, to educate, and of course to sell. So, retail is easier to sell. Have a price point. This costs 10,000. This costs 1,000. Right. Corporate is a price sale, but it can be used to generate inquiries.
Right. Yeah.
Also to build a community. I think the biggest one is community.
Right.
Okay. Virginia, do you have?
Sure.
Thanks, Gayatri. They were really the questions which made me think.
Thank you. I'm grappling with those questions, so it helps.
Explain.
I can tell
Gayatri.
I would say when entrepreneurs talk, and I want to tell every entrepreneur, log, like a sailor logs his logbook, log your thoughts. Tomorrow they'll be valuable to somebody else. After you say all of this was so nice, every day can be such a momentously challenging day, and then the passion is what gets you through the day to live tomorrow.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
Virginia.
Thank you so much, Gayatri, for your questions. Zia, listening to your presentation and sharing your story was just incredible. It took me back to me remembering my days when I of my company. So that was a great sharing, and thank you for that. You've had, a great corporate exposure where you've worked for some of the really big brands in India. And I was wondering at which point of time you decided to become an entrepreneur. Was it a moment that, you decided that you'd become an entrepreneur, or was it a journey that brought you to that point? Could you throw some light on that, Zia?
I think the universe conspired. So, I'll tell you a little story. So I think, it's very interesting. When I went to Goa in 1984, and I saw this windsurfing happening, and I can, my two friends who went with me are still in touch with me. I'm telling you, we sat outside a hotel, a beautiful 5-star hotel, and said, one day we are going to be on the other side of the fence. Okay. Today, I'm in the Grand Hyatt Goa. I don't own it at all, but they're my partners. And I sit in this hotel, looking out at that bay. It's amazing. It's almost like in 1984, I was destined to run a sailing company, if I want to be very philosophical. Okay, I enjoyed my corporate career. Every day of it, I met the most amazing people, and they've been supporting me through this venture. So nothing pushed me out of corporate. Really, honestly, Shakil had started this company. I could see him. I would, evenings we would discuss, and sailing was close to me. I could just see the value I could bring here. And then one day I felt that the value I can add here is just more than the value I'm adding where I was. And it's interesting, my last boss, the CEO of Monsanto, is somebody who's been with me in my journey of Aquasail, has supported me through it, still with me in terms of mentoring. So it's been a wonderful journey. So maybe it was 1984. I always had this in me. But I would say that I think after 40, 45, if you feel you've done a lot of things, suddenly this challenge that comes at you and you want to get there. It was a temptation to get there. And I can tell you that just imagine what I've got. I'm running a company which is sailing. I love sailing. I love events. There was a time when I was out of college, I wanted to do event management. It wasn't encouraged by anybody. I'm doing events. I love teaching. I'm doing leadership coaching. So I just think it was a lot of ingredients that came together. But I think the passion is to succeed. If you're doing something, do it well and with passion. And I think that's made me take that step.
So, how did you identify, that this was something that you wanted to venture into and commercialize? Because everybody has so many different passions, right? And it's one thing to have a passion and a completely different thing to know how to commercialize your passion and match it with a market opportunity. So, where did it start from? Did it start from a passion, or did it start from an opportunity that you thought existed? Or was it, of an educational background or an experience that you had in terms of marketing with your previous, work experience that made you venture into something like this? What would someone need to keep in mind when they choose to convert their passion into a business enterprise?
I'm going to answer this question in two ways. Okay. One, I totally agree with you. So there are a lot of people who say, I like horse riding. Okay. And so I want to run a horse riding company, or I like cooking, whatever, I love IT. But I think that if it's something you're just very passionate about, maybe it's best to keep it separate. Okay. Because there has to be a business idea and that passion. And actually, you'll end up doing the business part and not the passion part. Okay. And I think that's very important to understand. Does this passion have a business idea and why you're doing it? Now, you could do it for social impact. You could do it because you love, so you're doing a cultural thing and you're doing a cultural thing. But we are talking today about commercial ventures, and there has to be the ability to monetize this. That's one. And this is something I often tell. It's interesting. I talked about talent being my biggest challenge. And whenever I'm trying to tell people to come on board, and they say, I have to find somebody passionate about sailing. And I'm saying, no, I don't know. In sales, I want a person who's passionate about selling, not about sailing. I want someone who's passionate about digital marketing. I want someone, my sailor instructor has to be passionate about sailing. So both ways. If somebody who just loves sailing and he comes on board to do my marketing, he's not going to succeed. If he doesn't like marketing, he doesn't like sitting and crunching numbers, he's not going to enjoy this job. He's in fact going to wonder why the hell he's just a sailor sitting and crunching numbers. So keep your passion separate from your business if there is no business idea in it. And if you can marry the two like I managed to do, then I think, you're a very lucky person. But otherwise, ensure that you know why you are doing it and have a plan. Bring in expertise. You need the ability to execute. You need to have a business plan. You need to understand your customer. You need to be able to, draw upon insights of other people. Then you convert it. It's not just me. So I'll give you an example. My brother is an artist. Okay, he does stained glass artistry. I'm just sharing it. So that's a small enterprise, unlike mine. He loves, and by the way, he was the one in Oman. So, he loves his stained glass. He creates outstanding stained glass stuff. He's made a vision of saying India has the most beautiful coastline, the best sailing conditions. We got so much out of sailing. Why don't we bring this joy to people? And there was a reason in that. But we were very clear we needed to make it a commercially successful venture.
There was a purpose. The purpose was to help people enjoy India's coastline and sea.
Yes, but we had to make it commercially successful.
Naturally.
When I look back at, when I was in corporate, we had these beautiful exercises of vision, mission, purpose. But, you have to be able to connect to that. You have to be authentic about it. I think that's another very, very important thing.
Yeah. Gopal?
Well, thank you very much, Zia, for that wonderful presentation. It brought back to me many memories of my sailing with you. I thought I'm too old for it, and Zia, being the archetypal salesman, persuaded me that not only am I young enough for it, but I should bring my wife and my daughter. You got the pictures there of my sailing.
I have to say this. So, Miss, RG, as we fondly call him, and Sir, here he is. It was just amazing. He came and said, can I, after this, I've got to go for a function and, I hope I won't get wet. And I said, no, you won't get wet. These are like big boats. And it just as luck would have it, that's the day it blew 26 knots. 26 knots is very strong wind in Bombay Harbour. Everybody else's boats were off. And, Mr. Gopalakrishnan came and sailed and raised. You can see him raising his hand here. You can see him helming the boat with one of these fantastic women sailors that we have. So, Gopal, that was like amazing. The way you energized everybody, and 26 knots of wind, that's a feather in your cap.
Thank you very much. I didn't know what's 26 knots or 25 knots. I didn't know the difference. But all I know was I had to turn up in some other place at about 6 or 6:30.
You were very
absolutely drenched. I didn't have, thanks to the 26 knots, it is a very rough, choppy sea. And they arranged for me in the yacht club a little place to have a quick shower. I didn't have my own towel because I didn't expect to have a shower. And it was a very memorable experience and brought back all those memories to me. I think it was Axis Bank, wasn't it, who was the sponsors or something?
Absolutely. This was part of that amazing thing that I talked about, the Axis Bank Regatta series, which, everybody just wants to be there as part of it because it's such a fantastically curated experience.
And in the middle of all this chaos and getting wet, It had been planned that I would give some short speech on management, which was totally misplaced. But nonetheless, we went through it. So thank you very much, Zia. You have become a very charming storyteller, and I loved it. You know, I met Zia when she was a young trainee, and I was the managing director of Brookbond in Bombay, in Bangalore. And that must be 20, 25 years ago. And I then ran into her about maybe 10 years ago, or maybe 4 years ago. Her office was opposite mine after I retired from Tata's. And she reconnected and came to me. And periodically she would tell me about her plans and could I advise her or help her in a small way. I don't think I could do very much of that. But sailing, going sailing with her made a big difference to the way I thought about things. Because I experienced without a lecture, but today I've had the lecture. All the lessons that she talked about, agility, making your sales do your job for you, expecting uncertainty as a way of life and not assuming that it will be certain tomorrow. I also experienced something that, if you don't mind, Balram, I would like to say a few words on this because I feel deeply philosophical at this stage of my life, which is understandable. I am the happy husband of one woman, happy father of 2 daughters, and happy grandfather of 3 daughters. So there are women all around me. And obviously I have my passions and my dreams for women, if nothing else in my selfish interest, to be a co-panelist with 3 wonderful women, each of whom has chartered out their own course, whatever their circumstances may be, is something that's very, very gratifying for. And I think India's true potential will come out when there are lots of Zias and lots of Virginias and lots of Gayatris, not just the guys who come in the pink papers. They also do a good job. I'm not against them. But it's a very different type of entrepreneurship that we are hearing about today. The pains, the pangs, the difficulties, the frustrations. And I've always, although I've worked in large companies, I've always also had a little entrepreneurial, creating new demand, creating new brands. And I've found that entrepreneurship, whether it's in a large company or a small company, there are differences, is a bit like what a mother does with her baby. And with the number of women around in my family, I'm seeing babies quite often. The motherhood is the best lesson for entrepreneurs. There's uncertainty, you require agility, you require your wit, you require networking, and you name it. I mean, there's nothing which is certain. And sailing is since all men can't become mothers, and they will never appreciate it unless they have 3 daughters and granddaughters, sailing is the second best alternative. Motherhood would be the best alternative, but men can't do that. I met Shakil as well, and he's a fabulous guy. He's very quiet, reserved. He's like the techie in a software company. I mean, he knows everything about the sea. He knows everything about the boat. And he will let Zia do the talking. Good husbands always do that. And he's a good husband in that sense. What I found very interesting in your presentation, Zia, is I have colleagues of mine who use magical words. And I sort of summarize some of them. I appeared to see all of them in your presentation. For example, Harish Manwani often says, if you need a successful business, you need logic and magic to come together. And I think it's a nice catchphrase, but I think you did that very well. He also uses another phrase, Harish, you people don't know him, but he's quite an articulate guy. He says you must have the ability to see the picture and the pixel.
Good one.
You must see the big picture, but you must also be able to see the dots. And I find that Gayatri asked a question about digital marketing. And, we often think of digital marketing as some abstruse, clever things which software guys do. Nothing is further from the truth, frankly. The principles of marketing are exactly the same. Whether you talk of Ted Levitt back 70 years ago, or you talk of today. When I began my career, radio advertising was the big thing. And everybody thought, oh, the media is changing. Then came television. And now it's come digital. So what Zia has done in her presentation is to bring out, through her professionalism as a B school graduate and marketing background, all the classical principles of marketing. What is the consumer's need? How am I going to be a solution to the consumer rather than how can I attract the consumer to me? How can I become attractive to the consumer? And you're constantly choosing themes and methods to try to attract the consumers to your proposition. And if it doesn't work, you don't blame the consumer, you blame your product and you go back and do the work on it. So I have to say, great credit to you, Zia. I think this will be inspiring, and the questions that Gayatri asked and Virginia asked were very perceptive, because this is the question that everybody else faces as well all the time. You know, there's a guy called Bill Gross. I don't know if you've heard of him, but it may be not inappropriate for me to mention. Bill Gross is one of the biggest venture capital guys in Silicon Valley. I think he has funded 800 something like that, some huge number of startups. And one of the things he did, as usual, out of the 800, probably 50 made all his money and the other 750 lost the rest of the money. But he sat down and analyzed what has he learned as the most important thing for an entrepreneur. I'm mentioning this because it may be helpful. There are 3 women entrepreneurs. I would really love all of them to be very successful. And he said there are 5 factors. Idea, funding, execution, talent, and timing. 5 factors. Now I want to ask the 3 ladies here, of these 5, which is the most important according to you? Zia, you go first. I'll repeat them for you. Timing, funding, idea, execution, talent. Which is the most important of these 5?
I think you heard me say it. It's talent.
Talent. Okay. Gayatri. Execution. Virginia.
Myself, because I come from a construction background, it's execution that was very important to make my business successful.
Okay, now here's the surprise. 2 of you said execution, 1 said talent. Timing is the most important. And Bill Gross gives a nice TED talk. If you go to TED and Google and say Bill Gross, you'll find his talk. It's only 20 minutes. And he says, entrepreneurs are just not conscious of it. And so patience is a virtue, persistence is a virtue, which gets discounted because they are after funding, next B series, C series, and sometimes your timing is completely too early, and so you give up, and that may be right or wrong. Sometimes you get a timing absolutely sweet spot, and you just boom, and sometimes you struggle to find your timing. And I think this is not only important for women entrepreneurs, it's true for all entrepreneurs. But I say particularly for women, because you start off as women entrepreneurs with several challenges which are not necessary for me to recount here. But they are there, social challenges, family challenges, and so on and so forth. And if you can bear in mind, and I would commend you to listen to Bill Gross, that if you don't get the timing right, especially if it's a brand new idea and you're creating a new demand. So this is very wonderful. I'm very, very pleased, Balaraman, that you asked me to participate. I'm not a woman, I'm not an entrepreneur, but you got me into this panel. And it has been fascinating for me to listen to Zia's presentation. I know a bit of her journey, but I'm getting a comprehensive view, and to listen to what... Zia, I just want to ask one question to you, if I may, Balaraman. Do you have the time, Balaraman, for me to ask one question?
Yeah, sure, we have time.
You know, the startup world that we see through the pink papers.
Sir, your video is off, just in case you want to.
Whose video is off? Mine?
No, that's okay. His video is...
It's okay, sir. It's a signal problem. You go ahead, sir. Your voice is strength fine.
Yeah, his video is on, yeah.
You know, when you see the pink papers, you think all startups are about getting Chinese entrepreneurs and venture capitalists and getting up to be B series, C series, D series, and becoming unicorns. When I listen to people like you, I feel the world has still got sanity in it. That there are struggles, there are difficulties. Now, the question I wanted to ask you, and not only Zia, but I would request Virginia and Gayatri also to offer their comment, is when you go through these processes, what does it do to the gene in your brain, which represents either humility or overconfidence? Now, overconfidence doesn't arise because that happens to those guys who make $1 billion company in 3 months. What does it do to you as a person, as a human being? Tell us frankly. Maybe we'll start with Virginia and come to Zia a little later. Last, we'll go to Gayatri. Virginia.
Thank you, Gopal. For me, failure or setbacks in my business made me accept that failure is okay. And despite, the fact that we face failure, it's not the end of the day. But the next day when you get back at work, you've got to give it your best, because there are people whose salaries that you need to pay. There are bills that you need to pay. So just being bogged down with failure is not something that you can do as an entrepreneur, because you shoulder the responsibility to, paying your bills, to making your business run. And, the financial pressure is always there, unlike how it is when you're an employee of an organization. Yeah. When you fail to meet your targets, you probably get called by a superior, and you have a chat, you have a talk, and you're advised to pull up your socks and do better. And then you go back home, and then you try and do better. You realign your goals, and you put in the effort to meet your goals and your target. Yeah. But as an entrepreneur, irrespective of how the day closes, when you get back to work the following morning, you've got to not remember the sorrow or the depression or how the previous day got you down, but really go into the office with a fresh mind, and all the energy that is required to fix the issues that you have, and not make that bring you down, or not allow negative energy to seep into you, because then you carry that negativity with you in the office, with your interactions, with how you behave with people at work. So that is something that you can't allow to get into your daily life at work. Yeah, and so staying positive and keeping negative energy away is something that you need to practice, and keep in mind if you're a managing director of a company, or the senior most person, or the founder of an organization. It's very, very important to not allow bad days pull you down.
Gopal, are you there? Hello. Gopal?
Yeah.
Gayatri, you explain your angle.
Me, it's been to get back to the drawing board and to analyze what went wrong, and more importantly, if something's gone wrong really bad, then to make sure that the same sort of circumstances don't happen again. So going back to the drawing board and discussing with my co-founders on why a repeat should not happen has helped me get through some of the setbacks so far. Positives, when they come, also requires why did it go so well? That also equally takes time. So both equal measure.
True. Yeah. And now, Zia.
I told you, just capsize your boat, get back on and sail it. So, to me, it doesn't, I don't think one thinks of it as failure. Really, I think when you're in a very large corporate, there's always this whole thing of appraisal and what's wrong with you and what you should change. And I think you just got to be free from all that. It's a mistake. You move on, things didn't go right. You just move on. It's like a sailing boat, which is sailing. You just move on. I think one doesn't even think of the word failure. That's all I can say.
Vijay,
yes, he's going to log in again. So he's got, I think, some issue with the net. He's coming back again.
Okay.
Now, meanwhile, can we go for the questions what has come from the YouTube and other viewers, sir?
No. Hang on, Vijay. I would like both Gayatri and Virginia to briefly explain their business, because we have a lot of women listening and we'd like them to know what these entrepreneurs do.
My business is in the field of senior care, elder care. So we have a lot of senior citizens living in their homes without a next generation support. They're by themselves. Their children are generally abroad or at least in a different city. So they have a whole host of requirements, from medical, non-medical, emergencies, or even routine, regular shopping, a whole variety of things, fixing some appliances at home, any kind of service. So in some ways, I have certain manpower which I supply. Sometimes I'm an aggregator of services, but I'm a one-stop shop for any senior citizen living by themselves in their homes. That's my business model.
Good. And Virginia?
Hi. So I used to be employed in the corporate sector whilst I lived in India. But about 15 years ago, my husband had an opportunity to move to the Middle East in Oman. So that's really what took me away from India, and the reason why I moved to Oman. And at the time when I traveled there, the business or the background and the experience that I had in India, was a field that Oman didn't have too many job opportunities in real estate, because it was, a very small market, and real estate was not such a popular line of business. So because there was a lack of opportunity for me to be employed, in the corporate sector, the lack of opportunity drove me to becoming an entrepreneur so that, I could be self-employed. And what really started off as a consulting and advisory outfit, that's really what I started off doing, because to run any construction business, you need to have, huge amounts of capital and funding. Yeah. So I started off in advisory and consulting, and gradually moved into construction. And so I went into construction of, industrial plants, which is very, very different for a woman. And I've built, everything from refineries to petrochemical plants to aluminum smelters to I've done lots of work for the Ministry of Defense, built embassies, airports, ports, lots of institutional buildings, special economic zones. So there's tons and tons of, construction work that I've done, both in the civil sector as well as the industrial sector. It was extremely challenging for a young woman, because I was only in my late 20s when I'd traveled to Oman, to set up a business. And it was completely unheard of in the country for any woman to foray into construction as an entrepreneur, because the industry and the market was completely saturated with men, particularly Arab men. And it was very difficult for me to gain their respect and confidence, to accept me as one of their tribe. So I had to really prove myself through delivering my projects on time, delivering them, with good results that my clients had expected. So it was really, really challenging, as a woman to foray into that industry. But it was constant effort, constant hard work, constant innovation. I remember not spending anything short of 15 to 18 hours a day for the first 6 years of running my business. And I was never shy to do anything within my company, whether it was, taking photocopies or meeting my biggest client to win a $20 million project. I was never shy to, to take up responsibility and to fill in any position and any role that was required within the organization. Yeah. So pretty much done most of what exists in construction in Oman. And I've had a very, very fulfilling journey in the country. And I decided that I wanted to come back to India last year. And so I'm back here in India now.
Thank you. Thank you for, both of you, all three of you, very inspiring journeys. Now, Group Captain, please. Let's.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Balraman. We have over 1,600 viewers watching this program live on our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and our webinar. I think number of questions have come. We'll try and accommodate at least a couple of them, because you, during your interaction, you were really answered many of the questions which have come. The first question has come from the chat box, is from the Venkateshwar, and he says, if the COVID situation continues for a longer term, what changes you contemplate in your business model? And also another question to you, by roping in celebrities, do you think your business can improve? There's a question to Zia, please.
Okay, I'll just answer the second one first, but that's easy. I have roped in celebrities, but so we've done Bombay Times with a lot of models. We did a Women's Day with them. We've had a lot of celebrities coming on their own and sailing. Any business, I mean, in India, cricketers, Bollywood, all of this helps. But I think it's just a marketing or advertising strategy. In fact, I'm trying to break the myth that sailing is expensive or anything. So if I had to take somebody, I'd take someone who stands for sport or environment or a cause. So, I think it's just a marketing strategy. It's not the only thing I would do. It could fit in with one of my many products. Okay. On the COVID situation, I think today is difficult for anybody to say, because there is still lack of visibility for a lot of people. Like I said, you can't control the wind, you control your sails. We will just keep adjusting till where we can. I'm a sailing company, so I can't suddenly decide to do something totally different. But it's an interesting thing. We've had people inquiring about buying boats. We have people interested in doing theory classes online on sailing. We have a great set of customer base who said, Zia, what can we do to keep the wind in your sails? But yes, there's a tactical business model change. I mean, I can predict that even when everything opens up and people start moving around, corporate is not going to be doing, let's say, large conferences, because people won't travel as much and as freely. So obviously we will pivot onto something that we were always, it was always part of the business plan, which was retail. It just gets a little more advanced. So I think you have to live day by day in a situation like COVID.
It's a question from the YouTube, Mr. Garg from Delhi. The failure rates of startup is as high as 70%. What do you think are some of the main reasons for this high failure rates, and what role can leadership play? Not just prolonging the life of the startup, but also in ensuring that they emerge successful enterprises. He also added further, what's your view on the mortality rate of startups and the role of leaders can play in helping startups be more successful? This question, I think any one of them can.
Yeah, so would someone else like to answer it, or should I answer it?
I think I could.
Yes, please.
Address that. So I think one of the biggest, some of the biggest reasons for failure is not doing your homework completely, and not studying everything that needs to be covered. So you don't, understand, the impact of the market situation, and you only look at things from your own lens. And sometimes a failure to look at things from the lens of the customer or the marketplace, or failure to look at things from the lens of your shareholders could lead to failure. It sometimes could be overconfidence of your business succeeding that could lead to failure. So it's very important, particularly if you're a startup, to have someone mentoring you, because someone who's already done this before, someone who's done this for themselves, have seen the ups and downs of a business. They've seen successes, they've seen failures, and they know what it takes to come in and out of these different curves. and never be shy to tell people the truth, and never be shy to take help from anybody. Particularly, if you can get yourself a mentor, then that would be a great thing. And always keep your ears very close to the ground. As much as it's important to execute and run and operate your company, it's equally important to, be connected with what's happening in the market, what's happening with your competitors, whether there are new entrants in the market. I think, knowledge of what's going on is very, very important.
Thank you. Maybe Mr. Gopal, you mentor so many and you also teach a large number of MBA students on similar thing. Would you like to add, Mr. Gopal?
The only point I would add is mortality is a part of reproduction in nature. Whether it's 70% or 60% or 90%, one can argue. So mortality is a part of the reproductive system. And the species that survive and grow are the ones who are more interested in the risk than the fear of failure. The fear of death is enough to kill the species. The attraction to the risk. So my short answer is you can change the mortality needle, like you can change the efficiency of a steam engine. You can't make it 50%. Thermodynamics doesn't allow you that. So it's plus minus 1 or 2%. So you change the mortality. Don't fear mortality. That's part of the game. And these three ladies, spirited ladies, have demonstrated that this morning.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Balram, with your permission, one last question before we close. The question is, again, common to all the three of you, sir. What is the biggest challenge you have faced in your career as an entrepreneurial journey? How did you overcome it and what did you learn from it? They also asked one more added question. Would you describe yourself as a risk taker? Describe some of the risk you have taken as an entrepreneur in your venture.
Who would like to take it? Zia?
I think I talked about that through the, so thank you for that question. I'll try to summarize it quickly. So I think risk is in the mind. It's just a balance between what are you risking to what are you rewarding. You just go out there and do it. Now, what can you risk? If you're leaving a good lucrative job, you're risking your salary packet. If you're going to put in investment, you're risking that money. But I think that if you have very clearly what you set out to do, then I think generally speaking, my experience, the reward outweighs the risk. It's also how you define success. You have to define success. There could be your business might close down, but you might have gained so much that tomorrow you can start another new business or go back as a much more valuable person. So I think as, RG said, you just have to get out, leave that safe harbor, and that itself may be a risk in somebody's mind. But if you know where you're going to, or you think you know where you're going to, and you've got your compass to take that risk.
Vijay, may I just add a point to what Zia just said?
Please, sir.
It's unfashionable to bring in Vedanta into this, but Swami Parthasarathi has written a book based on Vedantic principles, and he says, I was reminded of that when I heard Zia. He said, you have a ship, go out to sea, because if you keep it in the harbor, you'll only see the barnacles. And I think he's coming to that from Vedantic principles. I think it adduces very well to what Zia said. Sorry for the interruption.
In sailing terms of Shakil, a lot of people have asked him, what does it feel? You're taking a 20-foot boat in a 30-foot sea. You just go out and sail that boat, and if you know how to do it, your boat will ride the waves. It's incredible. It's incredible. I would encourage everybody to go and look at some of the pictures I had to show later. Mr. Balaraman said he didn't even know this could be done, but 50 years ago, somebody, and you can check him out, Sir Knox, he sailed a boat, 33-foot boat, single-handed, solo, non-stop around the world. Would you think that's a risk or not, And he sailed around the world in that 33 could boat in 40, 50, 60 knots of wind. These are feats that some people do, and we do it in our lives every day. Sometimes we don't even realize the risks we are taking. But check out Sir Robin Knox. Check out the fact that I just want to leave a thought with everybody. This boat was built in India, in Bombay, in Colaba. Okay, just think about it. So there is just these things get together, and there's just let the wind fill your sails. Just adjust your sails at the right time and de-risk yourself for a moment. Put down anchor if you feel the risk is too much, but lift it up again at the right time.
Super.
Thank you so much. Before I request Mr. Balraman for a continuing remarks, as a token of our appreciation for our distinguished guest of honor this evening, I would like to present certain mask, because that's a requirement which is there today. We can't come and do it physically. On your behalf, we are presenting a mask, 400 mask, which will reach out to the NGOs and the people. So this mask, our team go around the places and hand it over to them personally, and also we'll work with some of the NGOs who take care of them. So this is really very helpful to them. And thank you so much for so kindly accepting our thing, and we'll be doing it on your behalf. Thank you so much. Now I may request Mr. Balraman for his closing remarks. Mr. Balraman.
Yes, our journey as continues. We will keep trying to celebrate successes of women in careers and on enterprise, and we hope that we will bring more and more women into this, and somehow improve their standard of living and their societal dignity and respect, as well as add to India's gross national product. We, after all, have to catch up with China. So if $2.7 trillion has to become $5 trillion, obviously 50% of the Indian population, which is women, have to come into the employment and business stream. For us to close on a happy note, Gopal echoed what my astrologer friend used to say. He used to say it's all about timing. If you have good times, you are doing well. If you have bad times, you are doing badly. So, Gopal, you were forecasting and predicting, and in an astrological sense as well. Thank you, Gopal, for taking out your time for this. And I do hope you will write many books about women entrepreneurs. And thank you, Virginia, and thank you, Gayatri. And above all, thank you, Zia.
Thank you, sir. I just want to say it's such a pleasure to have two of my, previous corporate leaders with me on this panel. Thank you, and lovely to also have met Gayatri and Virginia, and thank you for everybody who spent their time listening. Thank you very much. Sail your ship, be safe, and fair winds to everybody.
Shall I tell you something? You see, this is the second program in the last 18 weeks that your program is rated by 74% of the people as excellent.
Thank you. Thank you. It was all the enthusiasm that you put into it, sir.
Okay, Zia, thank you. Gayatri and Virginia, great to meet you. And Group Captain, as always, thanks to MMA and Balraman.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for the large number of participants. If some of your friends have missed this event, please tell them, and it's all available on YouTube, Facebook, and also our website for next few years. And you can always log in and watch.
So you can access it. Come to Madras Management Association on YouTube.
Yes.
You'll not access it.
There were one or two sort of personal questions on the.
I will share the chat with you, and yes, you can take it forward. I will share the entire. Yes.
Thank you
so many of them, the accolades and so many of them that I thought I should be sharing with you, so you'll get to know. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Virginia and Gayatri, Zia. Thank you, Balraman sir, for being so ably taking the session this evening. Thanks so much, and for large number of viewers watching this program, stay safe, stay healthy, and good night till we meet again. We have lined up phenomenal number of events in October. We look forward to seeing you, and some of them are outstanding, including subjects which are being discussed today. Quite quite a bit in television. That is new education policy, the new agricultural policy 2020. Quite a number of them we are discussing with some expert. Please do come, and you will get really insight and thought-provoking insights will be there. Thank you so much. Stay safe, stay healthy. Till we meet again. Bye-bye and good night.